afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on the East Coast. It is indeed a Monday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. 2 hours to play with, get social with us, as you guys typically do, at Rich Q on Q on IG and X, and of course, TikTok, Rich Q and Mike, the YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe. You guys have been fantastic. Hope everyone had a wonderful sports weekend. And if you avoided some of the snow up and down the East Coast, God bless you, because it is friggin' cold out there on this Monday, the 15th of December, 2025. I'm letting you guys know right off the bat, by the way, there's a lot of construction going on. You might hear some thumping and banging and bumping and whatever the hell the noise is outside. I don't know what to tell you. We got to fight through it on, as we like to call it, not only a Monday, a Man Up Monday edition of On Cue, but a Lunes Mentioso Locutor de Radio Man Up Monday. And when we typically just call out the BS takes. And I will just say this as far as the BS takes. What a run we had over the weekend, especially with our picks on Back Your Play. Lloyd's going to join me in the 5 o'clock hour, but we'll get into so much football. You got the Heisman, you got people tanking, you got the draft movement. But let's start really with a couple things that transpired on Sunday in the NFL. Injuries took center stage. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, Micah Parsons. Let's start with this. Right now, it's done. It's over. There's no more mathematically alive. There is no more they need a little help. There's no more Q. There's still the Kansas City Chiefs are going to go on a run. You've got Kelsey and Mahomes and Andy Reid and all these offensive weapons. They're not done just yet. It is over. God, thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God. The Chiefs run, the dynasty, it's over. I think NFL fans, you should rejoice. You should rejoice. It was a hell of a run. No one's taken anything away from what Kansas City has done over the last decade. It's remarkable. The level of consistency and winning and getting to the playoffs and winning the AFC West and getting the championships and having Mahomes and Kelsey and going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl multiple times. It was a run of all runs. And all you can do is sit back and just on the surface appreciate just how great that franchise has been over the last decade. It's truly, truly, truly remarkable. And to be honest, listen, you never want to see a player go down. And it does appear that Mahomes avoided major damage to the rest of his knee, even though he suffered that torn ACL. But the bottom line is this team, when they started 0-2, I came on the air and told you guys it was going to be a long season for Kansas City. In August, I said this team's not winning the AFC West. They might not even make the playoffs. And you saw the team got older. You saw younger, hungrier teams in the AFC. You saw this team was just not the team that can turn on the lights and all of a sudden just decide, hey, we're the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to make plays. We're going to be clutch. We're going to find a way to win. And listen, it's a 3-game slide, bad losses. When they started to step up in competition, Buffalo took care of them. The Broncos took care of them. The Texans pretty much hit that body shot. And then yesterday, the Chargers went for the knockout blow. And unfortunately, Mahomes goes down. And this dynasty, it's done. It's over. There are new sheriffs in the town, in the AFC, in the NFL. And when I say you should rejoice, not at their demise, but just it was a hell of a run. But now get some new blood in there. Get some new blood in there with some of these young teams. Get some new, whether it's going to be Denver, whether it's going to be the Chargers, whether it's going to be Jacksonville. You know, unfortunately, the Colts dealing with Daniel Jones, and you saw Uncle Rivers out there trying to push the ball and sling it. Whether it's going to be the Bills, who I'll get into a moment. It was a great run. But it's done. They will retool. They will try to get younger, and they might even struggle next season. So really the complexion to me, again, the complexion to me doesn't change in the AFC because I didn't think this team was going to make the playoffs. But now the mystique, the lore, oh man, we got to go to Kansas City in January and February, like that ends. And I'm sure it's killing some talking heads that are trying to figure out a way that they're mathematically still alive with a lot of friggin' help. I mean, what'd they do? Did the commission come out and basically say, hey, you know what, this year, because the Chiefs are out of it, let's put them back in. Let's push the goalpost back a little bit. Everyone gets in this year. So you got Kansas City out. And then yesterday, and I came on the air, what did we talk about? We talked about having an opportunity, if you are the New England Patriots, to just kind of grab the AFC East and just say, it's our division, it's our time. And it is amazing how like goofballs and clowns come out of the woodwork when their team is up 7-0, 14-0, 21-0, and they start talking junk, they start talking smack. And as I told you yesterday, there's going to be a moment, we called it yesterday, there was going to be a moment where Josh Allen was going to go into his phone booth and he's wearing, the Clark Kent kind of suit. And then he turns around and what happens? He puts on that Superman cape and there you go. You got Josh Allen yesterday. New England's up 21-0 against the New England Patriots. 21-0, where if you're a lesser team, you're pretty much going to roll over. And what did the Bills do? The Bills yesterday just show you the fight, the heart. I mean, that was a great game. It was back and forth. It was entertaining. 21-0. The Bills rip off 14 in the third quarter. I text my buddy. I think I text Lloyd and I said, Bills are going to come back and win this game. And as I alluded to, they ran the football well. They got some big plays. And I also set the scene for you. I said, give me a spot if you're Drake May, you're down late in this game, and you got to go 60, 70, 80 yards with a couple timeouts late in the game. Is he going to be able to get it done? And he didn't play particularly well yesterday. He didn't. So I think after yesterday's loss, 35-31, New England realizes we're not there just yet against Big Brother. We're going to be a playoff team, but now it gets a little dicier in the AFC East. But the MVP conversation with Drake May, it's done. It's 2 right now. It's 2. It's Josh Allen, and then I'll get to my next point, and it's Matthew Stafford, because I believe right now, as it stands, the Rams are the team to beat. They're just a phenomenal team. And I know people will sit there and say, well, you're not going to win a lot if you give up chunks of yardage and points. Yeah, but how many teams are going to be able to outscore this Rams team? And you saw it again yesterday. That was the final blow to the Detroit Lions. They're in trouble. They fall to the Rams 41-34. Stafford, brilliant. Close to 400 yards, couple touchdowns. Williams ran the ball well. Nakua had himself a game. Yes, the Adams hamstring injury is a little alarming, but I mentioned this to you the other day. Right now, the beauty of the Rams, that quarterback and that head coach, they are on the same sheet of music. And 41 points later, they beat the Lions. The Rams right now trying to get the top spot in the NFC. And right now looking pretty good. And then obviously locally, Giants rolling over against the Washington Commanders. We'll get into that a little bit. And then you've got the Philadelphia Eagles rebounding. And I told you again, I think I said Friday and on Sunday show. Pretty much said it, right? Boom. Here we go. Just get 28 points. And there you have it. They're going to win the game. Seattle got a little bit of a scare. But again, Slinging Sammy got him in field goal range. Boom. They win the game. That's all that matters. So Seattle, they get by. And I'm telling you right now, if you look around the NFC, Seattle's a good team. The Rams are a really good team. And Buffalo right now, they got a little juice. They got a little momentum. They kind of reminded everyone in the AFC, we're not dead yet. We're not dead yet. Jacksonville blew out the Jets. We'll get into that a little bit too. The Jets decide you got to put some heads on the chopping block. They get rid of their defensive coordinator. Mendoza winning the Heisman. How that affects some of these teams going forward. And also, too, Washington decides we're going to shut down Jaden Daniels. So we got a substantial amount of NFL to get into on this day. And as I mentioned, that dynasty is done. It's done. It's absolutely done. The Chiefs had a great run, and Mahomes is a great player. He's an all-time great. He's, obviously he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Kelsey's a Hall of Fame tight end. Andy Reid is a Hall of Fame head coach. But the run the injuries, the inconsistent play, the level of competition, the field is getting much more tougher in the AFC for Kansas City. And all you got to do is just kind of sit back and just admire what they were able to do. But again, when I say rejoice, not in a sarcastic way, rejoice is now, the parity really comes into form in the NFL. And we'll also give you the updated odds on the MVP race because I think yesterday it's down to two, and then there were two: Josh Allen and Stafford. All right, 13 past 4 o'clock hour, cranking it up on a Monday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. Don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Get ready with T3 Brooks Bourbon and, of course, Played Again Sports, 2 locations in Deptford and South Jersey. A lot of comments coming in. Don't forget on X, hashtag On Cue. We're going to read off your comments as well. You got some Facebook comments too. Also on TikTok from some of the videos that were out there. If you guys are newcomers to the show, keep it locked in for the next hour plus. Appreciate it. And if you like the engagement and the content, subscribe to the channel. Quick timeout. We're going to come back on the other side. We're going to rip through some of these comments. We're going to get into these games. And as I mentioned, a lot of Chiefs Kingdom fans, they are absolutely just beside themselves today. It's okay. Pick yourself up. Eagles fans, I'll get to you as well with the Eagles blanking the Raiders yesterday. I guess, oh, by the way, the Jalen Hurts nonsense of benching him for the backup, I guess we can kind of put that to bed. Maybe for 1 week. And then the injuries around the league and how they're going to affect the playoff picture. And I'm talking to you, Green Bay. All right, 13 past 4 o'clock hour on a Monday edition of On Cue. Quick timeout. We're going to come back on the other side. All right, 15 past 4 o'clock hour, Monday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. Appreciate you guys keeping us tuned into the YouTube channel. Don't forget, if you download the Odyssey app and you search Coastal Sports Digital Network, you'll catch me every Monday to Friday, 4 to 6 Eastern Time. All right, let's rip through new headphones. Who this? A.K.A. Heat 12 Man, A.K.A. Heisman, A.K.A. Steeler Nation, A.K.A. Duval, also known as Vince, chimes in. Duval said in the preseason, look where we are. Trevor is top 10 passing yards, running well. If he ever stops throwing it to the other team, will be unstoppable. Listen, I'll say this about Jacksonville yesterday. They got the Jets' defensive coordinator fired. Trevor Lawrence probably played the best game of his career. I mean, it doesn't take much to put up 35, 40-something odd points, against the Jets. But they put up 48. He was slinging it. What do you account for? 6 total touchdowns. I think 5 passing touchdowns. But again, here's one of the reasons that Jacksonville is 10-4 and 6-2 at home, because they're keeping their quarterback upright. He wasn't even touched yesterday. And this talk, with the Jets, oh, you found your quarterback in Brady Cook. Get the hell out of here. Kid had one friggin' play. Just stop already, right? Just stop. The Jets are horrible. They're a bad franchise. We know that. They're as bad as the Giants. It's one of the reasons they turn around today and they make the move. They had to fire Wilkes. I mean, Aaron Glenn is fighting for his job. I know I keep pushing back the goalpost with this, but every time I think this man is going to survive the season, I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, think about what they've done over the last several weeks. They give up 34 to a hit or miss Miami team, then give up 48 to Jacksonville. That's embarrassing. They're a bad football team, but give credit where credit is due. Give credit where credit is due with Jacksonville. I know Lloyd and I was not particularly high on Jacksonville. I thought the Texans by default will win this division. Obviously, it's, coming down to those two teams. Indianapolis, let's be honest, it was great to see Phillip Rivers out there, but ultimately, and they're going to stick with him again for Monday Night Football against the 49ers. He's got a noodle arm. I mean, it's just 44-year-old. I give him credit off the sofa, taking some hits and actually almost leading them in position to win a game. But Indianapolis, I just don't see them winning another football game. And obviously, the Titans are a very bad football team, 2-12, and they're staring down the barrel of another top 5 draft pick. But that's a nice win for Jacksonville yesterday. Goes to Luca Brasi. I'm going to man up maybe a little early in reporting on the demise of Mr. Hurts. I mean, it wasn't even a little early. I mean, with all due respect, it was a comical take. It really was. For anyone out there that actually suggests it, the Philadelphia Eagles were benching Jalen Hurts, it's really asinine, to be quite honest with you. And I get it. Other talking heads, maybe that's what they get paid to do, the contrarian take, and the 180 take. And I told you yesterday, score 28 points, you're going to win the game. And they won the game, and Hurts was efficient. He didn't really need to do anything. 12 of 15, $175, a couple touchdowns. Barkley got into the mix. I told you, 20 to 25 touches. They ran the ball for 183, and they beat the Raiders, a bad team, 31-0. So for at least 1 week, the chatter kind of, softens up a little bit, dissipates. And they got the win, and that's all that matters if you're a Philadelphia Eagles. And you got help last night because the Dallas Cowboys rolled over against Minnesota, and we know where their defense is at, and Minnesota exploited them. The Cowboys have a 1% chance to make the playoffs. Congratulations, Eagles. You won the NFC East. You won the NFC East. Now let's see what you're going to do in the playoffs. Yesterday, the whole complexion of the NFC totally changed. The whole complexion of the NFC changed. Imagine if Seattle stubs their toe. Now we're talking about clear path for the Rams here. If Dallas would have won last night, now a little juice, maybe they have an opportunity to sneak in. The Lions, defensively, too many lapses against the Rams. You can't win a shootout against the Rams. You saw it on that turf in that stadium. Matthew Stafford's playing at another level. But the big story coming out of the NFC, Micah Parsons going down for the Green Bay Packers. Now, you've listened to me for how long? I think Parsons is a good player. I'm not going to sit there and say he's a generational player. I'm not. But that is a bad loss because he's starting to come on. He was starting to come on. And I felt like, players left and right were going down for the Green Bay Packers. It alters what they can do defensively now. And teams understand that, and they're going to take advantage. It's certainly next man up for the Green Bay Packers. But not only Parsons going down, but the story in that game was, the offense finally coming alive for the Denver Broncos. My guy, Bo Nix, my squad, Denver Broncos. I told you, they're going to make a run to the Super Bowl. Nix yesterday, that was the best game of his pro career. In spite of the fact that Sean Payton has no clue what the hell he's doing as a head coach, going for 2 when you would have been up by 9 at the end of the day and then going for it late. I mean, the play calling, it's just some of these coaches around the NFL, I don't know what the hell they're doing, but Denver got the big win at home, and Parsons goes down for Green Bay, and you can tell, like, the life was kind of sucked out of that defense, and Denver took advantage of it. And now, if you're a Packers fan, listen, you got to figure out a way. The Bears, that's going to be a tough game. I mean, we saw what the Bears did to a bad Cleveland team yesterday. And the Bears defense is starting to come on. Then you got the Ravens, who got the win yesterday against Cincinnati, and now they're jockeying for a position to win the AFC North. And then you got a bad Minnesota team that would love to knock out the Green Bay Packers out of playoff contention. So that injury really changes the complexion of how Green Bay, or you attack them defensively. Now I must man up about my guy Sanders. Bad game. We live to fight another day. I will say this about Sanders yesterday with Cleveland. I know he had 3 picks, and I know 2 of them should have been caught. I think one of them bounced off the chest of Judy. I didn't think Sanders played particularly well. I had a very good eye on that game. I mean, I was watching these games with a lot of intent yesterday. And even that last play where it meant absolutely nothing score-wise, he held on the ball for 7.5 seconds and missed a wide-open receiver. I think it's plays like that on film that are going to push Cleveland to draft a quarterback. It was a bad game all around. It really was. The Bears just decided, here we go. We're going to pound on them. Williams with a couple of touchdown tosses. And then Myles Garrett is a bright spot for Cleveland, closing in on the all-time sack record. But wasn't a very good outing for Cleveland as a whole. But Judy's a dog, man. Like, catch the friggin' ball. I saw too much of that yesterday in the NFL. The Giants game, which, it was just one of those nasty, December afternoons, MetLife, 1 o'clock crowd. I can't believe some of these guys were there, trying to support and cheer on the Giants. Dart had a bad pick, should have had 3 touchdown passes, dropped it right in Slayton's breadbasket, and he drops it, right? I mean, but the Giants, if you listen yesterday, what did I say? They're probably going to lose the game because of special teams. Their kicker missed 2 field goals, and they gave up another long punt return. Like, they're a bad football team right now. Carter finally had that breakout game for the Giants. And as I mentioned, Tracy showed you a little something. Robinson showed you a little something. But right now, as it stands, the Giants and the Raiders 1-2 when it comes to Tankathon and the draft order. And they got to play each other. So you're talking about tank ball. Here we go. Now, Washington shuts down Jaden Daniels, but they played hard yesterday. The Saints played hard yesterday. We'll get into this a little more in the 5 o'clock hour, but that's the type of wild, crazy weekend it was in the NFL. I think Jovan commented in the other day, and Lloyd and I talked about it. If you're the Carolina Panthers and we want to take it serious, you can't lose to the Saints. And how they lost, I mean, brilliance by the Saints on that last play to set up the long field goal. But that is a crippling loss for the Carolina Panthers. You got no business losing that game 20-17. I mean, you're right there. Now you've opened the door for Tampa Bay coming out of the South. Got a man up. Oh, we already got that one. Q, how's your boy Sam Darnold thrown for over 200 the past 2 weeks and not got a TD pass? What is that? Hey, listen, but he made the throws when he had to make the throws and got him in the field goal range. That's all you can ask at the end of the day, right? Because if we're going to be fair here, and we're talking about these quarterbacks in the NFL, and Darnold threw for 271, that was an ugly game yesterday. They couldn't punch it in. It was all field goals. But sometimes you have one of those rare games. They couldn't run the football against the Colts. I didn't think the Colts' run defense was that good. And they held them in check. They held Seattle in check. That might be the one bugaboo. I don't want to say Achilles heel or weakness for Seattle. I mean, hell, they're 11-3. But if they can't run the ball with success, I believe Madman brought this up. If they can't run the ball with success, then you're putting a lot more pressure on Darnold. But listen, efficient yesterday. He was efficient, took too many sacks. I'm sorry, he was efficient, had the 1 sack, and spread the ball around efficiently. JSN, I think, had 7 for $115, but they just couldn't punch it in, and credit that to Indianapolis. But they got the win. So Darnold's going to be judged in the postseason. He's going to be judged in the postseason, but let's not get on him too much because he also had 3 touchdown passes last week against Atlanta. I know some of you guys just like to hate on slinging Sammy Darnold. Nate 79, 75. There we go. Rams, I get it, but he has a lot of wide receivers around him. Look what Josh Allen has. Oh, you're talking about the MVP race? Yes, I know, but it's a fair point you bring up. How do you dispute or refute or Matthew Stafford's numbers are just off the charts. They really are. They're just off the charts. The numbers are staggering. At 37 years of age, and he's got 37 touchdowns and just 5 picks, and we know 2 of them came in one game against Carolina. He's been absolutely lights out. And yes, they're going to get tested a little bit if Adams is out. They certainly have weapons. They've got very good skill players. They got wide receivers coming out of yin yang. They can run the friggin' football. I get it. And I think yesterday, Allen's pushing them. I mean, if we punch up right now, these are uh, up to the minute, right? And remember too, let me give you another dark horse. And before you guys get on me, I'm going to give you a dark horse to maybe take a couple votes here and there away. So I said yesterday on the air, if you remember, my scenario that I laid out was this: if Allen turns into Superman and the Bills win this game and May struggles, then we get rid of May and Allen gets catapult over May, right? So for as well as May has played this year, and you guys want to talk about the schedule, whatever, he finally gets up to a test and the Bills are down 21-0 and Allen does what he does. And I don't care about the officiating. It stinks in the NFL. We know that. We got to get over that. So the Bills get the win. And now Allen jumps May because Allen is basically, I'm Superman right now. I also mentioned if Stafford plays well, 425, eyeballs on that national window, the Rams in Detroit, here we go. So it's almost as though that recency bias. But now here's a little dark horse to throw into that, a little caveat. Bo Nix. That was a big, big win for Denver. It was a big win. They won 11 straight. They're 12-2. They've got the inside track for the number one seed in the AFC playoffs. Now, like I said, if you look at the odds, after that loss yesterday, New England's loss, and it doesn't help that you're up 21-0, by the way. It does not help your MVP talk conversation that you're pretty much about to beat Big Brother and you're up 21-0. Oh, by the way, you're up 21-0 at home. It just doesn't help the cause. So Drake May's odds to win the MVP pretty much shrunk dramatically. They went all the way down to like 17%. 70%. So now he's below Matthew Stafford. And guess who jumped him? Bo Nix, 29%. And I thought Bo Nix played perhaps his best game as a pro. 23 of 34, 302, 4 touchdowns, no picks. And this is what you like. Also the comp is, well, who did he outshine? He outshined Jordan Love. I mean, Nix is playing on a 4-year, $18.6 million contract. He's not going to be in line for a massive payday until March of 2027 at the earliest. That is an A-plus game when Denver needed him the most. And he was just slinging it. So now you've got Stafford, you've got Allen. Nix has jumped May. He's jumped Jordan Love. Forget about Prescott. Forget about Mahomes. Forget about Goff. Forget about Hurt. Forget about Lamar Jackson. It's down to 3, where I would say really 1, 2, Stafford, Allen, and then quietly Nix, right? And he's going to have like 3, 4 touchdown performance. They're going to have to win. For them to keep going like this and win 17 straight when it's all said and done and win the Super Bowl is really hard. He's due to have a letdown game, but it shows you how fast you can jump each other when we're talking about the MVP conversation, especially in the NFL. It's absolutely crazy. So to Nate's, point, listen, I love Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a phenomenal quarterback. Josh Allen, basically, he'll just will you to a win. He'll will you to a win. But they also have a 1,500-yard back in James Cook, and they have pretty decent wide receivers. Now, they're not going to have that top tier like the Rams do over 1,000 yards, but it's almost like a wide receiver by committee. He's a phenomenal, phenomenal quarterback. He's a phenomenal quarterback. I just don't, how are we gauging it? Purely by wins, and then we're adding the stats? Because if that's the case, Stafford blows him away, even though I think Josh Allen is a phenomenal quarterback. If he has a run over the next couple weeks and maybe Stafford struggles, then we can have that conversation. But right now, I think Stafford is in the driver's seat. The dynasty is not over, just like Brady Mahomes took a knee injury in year now. Yeah. You can read the internet too. Chiefs can retool and win another 3. No. But the dynasty, and I saw that stat too. That's the year they went 11-5, by the way, with Matt Castle and still missed the playoffs. As it stands, the dynasty's done. The dynasty's done. Like the run is over for the Chiefs. I don't know why you guys just can't acknowledge it. That's a serious injury. Now, it's serious in the point where he avoided really bad, big time serious damage, but you tear an ACL, that's never a good thing. So now he does it in late December. You're talking 9 months. He's not going to be ready by September. And you also have to remember it takes a full year plus for what Mahomes does best, plant leg moving around, running, scrambling. I mean, that conversation is for August, September, but they got to retool. They have to retool. They have no ground game. Pacheco didn't give you anything. Mahomes is the leading rusher. Hunt's getting older. We already saw what happened with their tight end. Kelsey looks shot. He's got 1 foot out the door. And then you got to talk about the wide receivers, and the defense is getting older. It was a great run. It was a great run. And maybe in a year or two, yes, they retool and they get back to the playoffs. They win the AFC West. But this portion of the run is over. It's done. And you want to mark it, go ahead. If MVP came down to who has done the guy who does more with nothing, it's Josh Allen, but it doesn't. These are your points are valid, but it doesn't. It just, you're looking at the year he's had in Stafford and the fact that, I'll tell you another reason why you got to really get rid of Drake May. Okay, who have you beaten? Right? Which I hate that conversation, but that's the truth. And then you look at Josh Allen. So, the Bills have kind of had a very goofy kind of season, right? Because they get bailed out by 2 Derrick Henry fumbles to open up the season. They beat a bad Jets team, a bad Miami team, a bad Saints team. They lose to the Pats, and then they lose to the Falcons. That hurts Josh Allen. Just like Stafford lost to the Panthers. I know where you're going to go with this. Okay? Then the Bills beat the Panthers. They had the big win against the Chiefs. Lost to the Dolphins again. Beat a bad Bucs team. Lost to the Texans, who are a playoff team. Steelers, Cincinnati. They're not playoff teams. And then you beat New England. So if you're saying, okay, give me the signature win, right? The signature win, because this is what the voters will look at. And if we're really being fair, because we got to be fair here, the Rams beat the Texans. Okay. They lost to the Eagles. They beat the Ravens. They beat the 49ers. They beat Seattle. They beat the Bucs. They beat the Cardinals. They beat the Lions. I would say better wins than Josh Allen of Buffalo, but they also lost to the Panthers, which is going to hurt them, and lost to the Eagles, and that game came down to a blocked field goal. The Rams, if you asked me at this moment, Stafford's the MVP and the Rams are the best team in football. I honestly believe that. They're built where if you have to go in there, you're going to have to score 35 plus points. And we can't overstate how good this head coach is. He's phenomenal. When you have a quarterback and a head coach that are basically sharing the same brain and they're on the same sheet of music, and it's like, I know exactly what you're thinking. You know exactly what I'm thinking. You don't even got to tell me to play. I know what you're like. It's really fascinating to watch, especially the fact that Stafford's playing this good at his age. Look, they can run the football and they've got phenomenal wide receivers, but I'm not going to penalize him for that. I'm not. They're averaging 4.7 yards a carry on the ground game. They can do anything they want on second and short. They can be, just the innovativeness, bubble screen, slants, beating guys over the top, getting Nakua in there, getting Adams in there. Now you're starting to see the tight end get into the mix, even though that was not a touchdown yesterday. I don't know what the NFL's thinking. But I think at this moment, on this Monday, the Rams are the team to beat. The Rams are the team to beat, and Stafford's playing like an MVP. Let me see. Hate to say it, Q, but I think I'm going to place a small wager on one of my ex-lovers tonight. They're unbeatable Monday Night Football on the Fins, sucking the cold weather. I feel like I need to shout. Oh my goodness. Yeah, right. What was that old song back in the day? Right? Torn between two lovers, playing like a fool. And then you realize as you get older, it was really the one guy, the one lover. He just had two personalities. I think that's where we're going, Vince. I think that's where we're going. I'm a little surprised that you're letting on. You still got feelings for the ex. I listen. I can appreciate that. Who doesn't? Who doesn't, right? I mean, that's the way of the world. But now you're taking it to another level. You're going to dabble in a little Monday night madness with the Dolphins and the Steelers. And oh, by the way, the Steelers are laying 3 at home. You're trusting Aaron Rodgers? Oh man. Well, actually, I should say you're trusting Tua and/or Aaron Rodgers. Hey, have fun with it, man. Good game will be Philly at Buffalo. I have a feeling you're talking Super Bowl. That would be a hell of a Super Bowl. Oh, you're talking late in December? Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's a huge game. That might be could be a Super Bowl prediction. Yeah, that's a huge game. That's in Buffalo. I mean, if you're the Eagles, you probably wanted to get them earlier in the season, but that is a good litmus test for both of these teams. I'm not going to say the Philadelphia Eagles, and I know Tom at Summers Point wants to know, quote, did they right the ship yesterday? No, they beat a bad team. And that's what you're supposed to do. Like they blew a 21-point lead against Dallas. They got run over by the Bears, and they just couldn't figure it out late and in overtime against the Chargers, which was a bad loss. So you're at home, and what do? You bury a bad team coming out west to the East Coast, and that's what they did against the Raiders. Kevin C chimes in Q. Any thought of the Giants making a move today and/or tomorrow? Not only special teams, you called it on Sunday's show, but also with the GM Joe Shane. No, but they're not. Listen, they're not bringing Joe Shane back. I mean, it's laughable that you don't have a punt returner on the active roster, and the kicking game stinks. And I told you this. Their special teams is one of the worst in the friggin' league. They're a bad football team. And now you're starting to hear because they're locked in with the Raiders with the top spot when it comes to April's draft. So I don't foresee the Giants beating Minnesota. I don't see it. McCarthy looks like he can play a little bit, but I don't see the Giants beat Minnesota. Then they have to go on the road and play the Raiders. Now, if I'm the Giants, I would rather see Geno Smith than Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett stinks. Ugh, he's not an NFL quarterback. He's horrible. I'd rather see Geno Smith because if you want the Giants to lose outright, you got a better shot at Geno starting and at least throwing it down the field with a couple picks, but he'll throw for a couple touchdowns against his defense than Pickett. So that game right there, that might be your, for the overall number one draft pick. And then they close out the season against the Cowboys, and don't worry, they're not flexing that game because the Cowboys are pretty much done. And I don't think they're going to beat the Cowboys either. So if you're a Giant fan, as I am, as Kevin is, also D is, as Monday Marcus and Matty Boy is, then you want the Giants to obviously lose out and finish 2-15, and I think they'll be, even if it's top number 1 or 2, there's going to be wiggle room. They can be very creative. They're going to trade that pick, but if you believe a team like the Jets or a team like Cleveland, Tennessee's not going to do it, but just kind of bringing it up right now, just before we hit the break, or the Vegas or Raiders, Cleveland, and Jets. Let's say they need quarterbacks. Let's just say for a moment they all need quarterbacks. So you get this kid Mendoza winning the Heisman, having a historic season with Indiana, says all the right things, unlike other Heisman participants that ran their mouth and sounded like jackasses over the weekend. But Mendoza carries himself a certain way, handles himself, looks like he's made for New York, can be that franchise quarterback. The more buzz you get with Mendoza, the more value that top pick is going to be worth. And I think the Giants might be able to get that little king's ransom. So your best case scenario is lose out. I know it's a loser mentality. They're not tanking, but just lose out. You have to, because it is just a situation where it's a bad watch. They're not bringing back Kafka. They're not bringing back Joe Shane. They're going to have to figure out what the hell they want to do, what direction they're going to do. And they have to bring in a head coach. The more I think about it, that has that offensive mind. I think you actually, I know I was talking, I think you got to bring someone to just kind of keep grooming. Jackson Dart. Look, Joe Shane's been horrible. He gave Russell Wilson $10 million for a year. He gave James Hudson 2 years for $12 million. He gave Goldston 3 years, 18. Slayton 3 years for 36. That friggin' ball, every time it catches, he's like friggin' Featherstone in the movie The Replacements. Clifford, Franklin. I mean, Slayton stinks. Debo can't stay on the field. He can't friggin' tackle. That was 3 years, $54 million. Thank you very much, Joe Shane. Why don't you just kick me in the nuts a couple weeks before Christmas? Like, get this guy out of here. He's not a viable option as GM, nor should he be. He's a horrible GM. Horrible GM. Bo Nix is the most inconsistent quarterback ever. Nobody talks about it. He goes from looking like an all-pro to J.J. McCarthy from 1 week to the next. I think I've talked about it a lot on the air. I mentioned Bo Nix has been very inconsistent, but he gave you a great game yesterday. And again, I don't have a say in these odds. I'm just conveying the information to you, brother. Stafford has 37 touchdowns with 5 interceptions. Stop it with Josh Allen and Superman. How many rings Superman have? Cam Newton, the real Superman, is waiting for your answer. Cam Newton couldn't even. Let me tell you something. We're going to do that on a Monday. Did you watch Josh Allen last year? Did you watch how brilliant Josh Allen was last year? Have you watched how great Josh Allen is when he needs to be? You're going to throw friggin' Cam Newton, 15-1 Cam Newton, who decided I can't fall on the football on the biggest stage in the Super Bowl before I got my ass handed to me? Are you kidding me? Cam Newton wishes he had friggin' half the career that Josh Allen has. Cam Newton can't even touch, even hold Josh Allen's jockstrap. Are you kidding me? You're throwing Cam Newton? Ha! Cam Newton goes in the phone booth and he would probably get scared that the door would close on him. The phone booth just rattles around. Get out of here. Stop. Come on. Don't embarrass. You were coming so strong on a Monday. You were coming so strong with your comments on a Monday, and then you're going to throw Cam Newton. You're going to compare Cam Newton to Josh Allen. Cam Newton, who hates every friggin' quarterback. Cam Newton's not even the same class, the same universe as Josh Allen. Please. Oh, my God. He's Cam Newton's bumbling Clark Kent. He's Bizarro Superman. Remember that in Superman 3? He's Bizarro Superman. Get out of here with that nonsense. Unbelievable. Jalen Warren playing tonight. We'll give you a status report sometime in the 5 o'clock hour. Coming with the hate. Mendoza screams bust to me. Very goofy and cringe. Don't know how well that plays in a locker room of grown men. What did he do? Yeah, I watch Cam Newton. I watch Cam Newton when the Panthers were 15-1 and they played the Giants. I watched and I saw what Newton did. And I literally came on the air the next day and say, he just basically wrapped himself up the MVP award. And that was it. Cup of coffee. That's it. But don't embarrass yourself and your football knowledge even trying to compare the two quarterbacks. It's absolutely asinine. It is. It really is. Like, I would actually question your football knowledge if you're gonna talk to me about Cam Newton, who again had a nice career in the NFL. Don't get me wrong; he had a nice career in the NFL. He's not Josh Allen. Just stop. He's just not. He's just not. It's ridiculous. I mean, first of all, I don't even think Cam Newton had 194 passing touchdowns. I don't even think he had 200 passing touchdowns. Josh Allen has 220 already. Now, you want to throw the rushing at me? Josh Allen has 77 rushing touchdowns. I mean, that's not bad, right? I'm just saying, is that good? We're gonna go on Cam Newton because they won 15-1 one season. Okay, Other than that, he had, I think, one or two more winning seasons as a quarterback. I mean, you're just embarrassing yourself with this nonsense. I can't on Monday. On a Monday, we're really playing this game. Oh, stop. Stop. Please. Stuck on one moment. Yeah, please. Stuck on one moment. Come on, stop it. You're hating to hate on a Monday. Let me guess. You'll take Trevor Lawrence over Josh Allen, right? Oh, wait. Would you take Trevor Lawrence over your boy Cam Newton? Come on. Stuck on one moment. That's the biggest friggin' moment of his career. He didn't fall on the friggin' football. It's not like it was preseason. It was the Super Bowl where I don't know how many people watch. Hundreds of billions of millions. Come on. I did hear today, unfortunately, Buffalo kicker Matt Prater got hurt, so they need a replacement kicker. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's the NFL. It's the NFL. The Bills showed you yesterday. They showed you yesterday. They got Bass on the IR, and I think Prater's out. So yeah, they're definitely going to scour the wire. Buffalo's going to be fine. They're going to be a playoff team, and I think they're going to make some noise. Again, how about this? Let's just think about this for a moment. If you're really being fair right now, and you're looking at the landscape of the AFC, okay? If you're looking at the AFC, and by the way, I can have an opinion without hating on a guy, but don't try to tell me that Newton is better than Josh Allen. Just stop. I just gave you the stats. Josh Allen might win another MVP. Just stop. Josh Allen, what he needs to do to validate his career, just like Lamar Jackson, is win a Super Bowl. That's the coup de grace. That's ultimately how we're all measured in the NFL if you're a quarterback. Got to get a ring, right? We want to sit there and say, great career, Hall of Fame career, wonderful. We want to put you in that pantheon. Now we got to talk about, your playoff runs, your MVPs, get to the freaking Super Bowl and win it. Now, there's no Kansas City. Jones is hurt with the Colts. Jacksonville, I don't know yet. Sorry. Because if you're going to tell me Bo Nix is inconsistent, then what the hell is Trevor Lawrence? He's the definition of an enigma. You got Denver, okay, young team, young quarterback, very good defense. You have New England that just got humbled by Buffalo. It's lining up where don't discount the Bills. That's all I'm saying. It's lining up right now where you start to now get this team playing like we've seen in the past, and Allen playing with this type of confidence and their ground game going. Now, they got to clean up the defense. Their run defense is suspect, and that can be a problem. But this is a team that's going to push New England probably to week 17, 18. I mean, they're 10-4 right now, and they're right there in the AFC East, and it's imperative. They want to win that division. They want to win that division, but don't discount them at this moment. That would be foolish. And there's a very low margin of error here because New England is sitting at the 2 seed and Buffalo's all the way in the 6 seed. Now, just imagine if Buffalo turns around and they win a division and they bump New England all the way to 6 seed. Conference record, Buffalo's 7-3. Obviously, they split division-wise. New England's 3-1. The Bills are 3-2. What hurt them is the fact that not only did they lose to the Patriots, but then they came back and had that bad loss against the Dolphins. But I'm not writing off Buffalo. Can't do it. All I'm saying is right now in the AFC, and I think we can all agree, you don't have to worry about Kansas City. The AFC North, are you scared of Baltimore and/or Pittsburgh? I'm not. The Texans could be a sleeper. The Texans could be a sleeper because they play really good team defense. But I think the doors have opened up, is my point. Where in a couple weeks, we're talking about the AFC Championship. Am I shocked if it's Denver and Buffalo? Am I shocked if it's the Texans and Denver? Am I shocked if it's the Texans and it's open. it's open. But let's not just kind of kick Buffalo to the side and Josh Allen, because we know what he can do when he basically decides, get on my back. Now, the other story to come out of yesterday, which is really bizarre, is this whole Joe Burrow situation in Cincinnati. Because Burrow comes out early in the week, the game's not fun, and then he stinks it up against the Ravens yesterday. And I text my buddy and I said, what do you think's going to happen with Joe Burrow? And there's this perception that Cincinnati's cheap, right? The Brown family, and they do things that would deem them being a cheap franchise, but they do take care of their quarterbacks. They've done it throughout the history, whether it was the Kenny Andersons, whether it was the Boomer Esiasons, Carson Palmer, they paid Burrow. I don't know if Joe Burrow is getting to the Andrew Luck portion of the show where he's looking around and he's like, man, I just, my body's taking too many hits. I'm not enjoying myself. I'm struggling. I think this is a very bad year for Cincinnati on a lot of levels. They had issues with players and contracts. Burrow's always banged up. Their defense is horrible. One of the coaches that we haven't really talked about a lot is Zach Taylor, and I think he's on his way out. But I'll say this, man, would I grab a guy like Joe Burrow? 100%. 100%. He's a phenomenal quarterback. He is a phenomenal quarterback. Sam chimes in, Q, did you ever recall a season where there were so many torn ACLs? No. That's a no. Parsons, Mahomes, Bosa, Neighbors, right? Hill, Ertz last week. Daniel Jones torn his Achilles, right? Najee Harris, I think, tore his Achilles as well. I think Lattimore tore his ACL. Now, are we going to start to have the conversation? The NFL season's too long. I mean, playing surface, cleats, what is it? But some of these injuries are really bad. And you feel for these guys. Anytime a guy goes down, you never want to see a play, whether you like the player or not, you never want to see a player get hurt. We joke at the Cowboys fans and the Packers fans and the Chiefs fans and this, that, the Eagles. You never want to see a guy go down. Parsons going down, you knew as soon as he took that step and it's non-contact, you knew exactly what it was. Mahomes going down. The NFL is better when it has its star players and its star power. And there is a uniqueness of having a team like New England back in the day, the Colts back in the day, Kansas City now, Green Bay, the Eagles, Baltimore, when they're in the playoffs. Yesterday what I saw, especially in the Rams, and I don't know if you guys felt this way too, that Rams and Lions game, that Packers and Denver game, it felt like a playoff game. It did. The Lions-Rams felt like an NFC championship game. AFC is totally up for grabs. It is. It is. And you don't have to go through Kansas City. Michael chimes in, Broncos country? Let's ride. That was a big win. That was an absolutely big, in spite of the fact that the head coach is a goofball. In spite of the fact. All comes from lack of preseason workouts. I don't know what it does. I don't know what it is. If he's always hurt, doesn't that take away from Burrow being great? Kawhi Leonard is great too. But is he? Kawhi Leonard? Now you're throwing NBA. Burrow's a great quarterback. That's utter. Just stop. Just stop. You're in hate mode today. Burrow basically dragged Cincinnati. Did you? Let me throw this out there just for one moment. Tell me now. I got to do it. I don't want to do it, but I got to do it. And let me pull up the stats because I'm pretty accurate with this, but let's put this to bed, shall we? So the year Cam Newton won the MVP, 35 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And then we'll get into this, the rushing and blah, 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 blah. Just to put it in perspective, Joe Burrow last year threw 42 touchdown passes, 9 picks, and threw for 5,000 yards. You're not going to tell me this guy's not a great quarterback? It's unfortunate that he got banged up last year. He got banged up his rookie season. He played 17 games last year and he's been banged up this year, but you saw what happens when he's out on the field. Now, yesterday is an aberration. He did not play well. But you're going to tell me a franchise right now wouldn't want Joe Burrow as their starting quarterback? He's a great quarterback. But yes, availability has to be key in the NFL. It's got to be key. If I'm building a team, a franchise around my quarterback, he's got to be available. Has to. Kevin chimes in, Q, I'm just so sick and tired of watching these games. It's just so depressing right now. I get it. They got a couple more games to go, but I'll ask you this. I feel like we have the same conversation week in and week out. What did the Giants need to do to turn it around? I told you this. They got to fix the defense. You got to get some players back healthy. Scatterboo, Neighbors. You got to fix special teams. I feel as though I don't want to backtrack on this, but I'm going to have to, and I don't like doing this. McCarthy's not coming here. If ownership wants to make a split, listen, you're talking about one of the historic franchises in the NFL, even though they've been a laughing stock for the last 10 years. It's a legacy franchise. It's a legendary franchise, the Giants. You're in a major market in New York. You've got a quarterback you can build around. You've got weapons. You've got some players on the defensive side of the ball. Some have worked out, some haven't. You're actually seeing Abdul Carter wreck the game yesterday. I mean, the kid played phenomenal. Hopefully he gets it. He was unbelievable. Sacks, tackles for loss, fumble return. I mean, he was a beast. Passes deflected. These are all things to build upon. If there was a Ben Johnson this year, I would beg the Giants to go after a guy like Ben Johnson. But there's no Ben Johnson, so now you've got to really do a little research. You have to. You got to figure out who's that next hot commodity. I think you go younger, and you got to go offense, and then you got to bring in a big-time defensive coordinator that's no friggin' nonsense, and the head coach has to hold the players accountable. Has to. My guy Mark chimes in. This is funny. He goes, what was the point of firing Daboll in the middle of the season? It made no sense. And I said, horrible head coach, no accountability. He goes, but in mid-season, Giants were competitive. Now they're a doormat. Now, typically, I would respond to that is, did you have the over? Right? Because probably people were taking the Giants and the over wins. Yesterday was a perfect example of no special teams. They never addressed a kicker. They never elevated a guy that can return punts. Their defense on special teams is just atrocious. They gave up back-to-back punt return for touchdowns in back-to-back weeks, New England and yesterday. And they let a veteran who I told you was going to be able to sling it, Mariota, carve them apart. They've got some players that have been injured. They've got a very weak secondary. They don't have a lot of depth, but they have those other players that I mentioned where if you got a healthy team you can build upon. They're never healthy. They're like the Ravens and the 49ers. And right now, I think they're still, with Kafka, he's not the answer. The Neighbors loss was huge because he can stretch the field. Tracy gave you a little bit. Scatterboo's coming back. Theo Johnson's a very good tight end, but they're not really drawing up plays that I think could elevate Jackson Dart's game. I mean, look, when the ball hits you in the hands, you got to catch it. They're not going to have design runs because the kid takes too many hits. And part of me also thinks Washington now shut down Jaden Daniels. I almost have this feeling if Jackson Dart takes a couple more hits, I mean, this kid's every time you turn around, he's got to go in the tent. And I know it's very uberly sensitive, but are they going to shut him down? And if they do that and they go to Winston, they're not going to win out. And they're probably going to get the number one draft pick. So whether it's one or two, be patient. You just hope the regime figures it out, ownership figures out, but they can ill afford to bring back Joe Shane. You just can't. Damon chimes in, kind of sad yesterday with the Chiefs. It almost felt like the end of a dynasty. I think it is. Kelsey's old. Mahomes suffered his first significant injury. The team just looked old. I've been saying it for how long now with Kansas City? Sometimes teams get old. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's not. Sometimes you just got to regroup. And I think that's kind of where you're at if you're Kansas City. It's a down year. It's a down year. Teams go through it. Teams they go through it. It's painful, but some teams can get through it. Some teams can't. Um, and you don't want to be stuck in that kind of purgatory of the NFL, like in the NBA, where you're sitting there sixth, seventh, eighth seed, and you realize you're not going to be able to do anything. And it's sad because it was a great run, but when I say rejoice, not at the injuries, but now you're going to get, you know, a new team coming out of the AFC. And that makes it interesting. Who's to say it can't be the Chargers or Jacksonville or Denver or Buffalo or the Texans? And that's what makes it fun. The AFC is so wide open. I think the NFC, I'm trying to figure out a path to victory if I'm a team like Green Bay going on the road, the Eagles going on the road, Seattle going on the road against the Rams. I just don't see it. And, when you have these teams playing at such a high level and they're starting to peak, and I think that's what we're seeing with the Rams, they're starting to peak. Yeah, you stub your toe against Carolina, but they score so many points. I mean, the Eagles can't keep up with this team. They embarrassed Jacksonville. They embarrassed the Saints. They embarrassed the 49ers. They embarrassed the Bucks. They embarrassed the Lions. I mean, that game was only a one-possession game, but if you really think about it, they did anything they wanted to do yesterday against the Lions. They had almost, 600 yards of offense? They ran for a $160. They averaged 5.5 yards a carry. Jared Goff played well. He played well, but I don't need Jared Goff slinging it 41 times. Detroit couldn't run the football yesterday. They got nothing going with Montgomery. They got nothing going with Gibbs. Now, Brown's a beast and Williams are beasts. I mean, they're phenomenal players. But every time Detroit kind of came back, you just saw the greatness of Stafford and the Rams, right? 7-0, 7-7, 10-7. Oh, here we go. 9 plays, 69 yards, 14-10. Oh, Detroit comes. They score. Detroit scores again. Detroit's up 24-14 in this game. They're up 24-14 in this game. And just to show you how great the Rams are, they rip off 20-something odd points. They're going to be very, very hard to beat. All right, 5 o'clock straight up on a Monday edition of On Cue. It's a Man Up Monday, or as we like to say, a Logador de Radio Lunes Mentioso. Manolo, Man Up Monday. We're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Get ready with tea. 3 Brooks Bourbon. Don't forget, too, with the freaking weather and the snow, my goodness, 20% off your first purchase, BYP20. Use the promo code Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us. I'll jump on the other side. Quick timeout. We'll reset the table. 16 to book, 60 to play with on a Monday. All right, 5:05 straight up on a Monday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. Appreciate everyone keeping us tuned in on this. What are we at? The 15th, 16th? Yeah, 15th of December 2025. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. Don't forget, download the Odyssey app. Check out Coastal Sports Digital Network. My guy, Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. Kind enough to join me for a couple moments. You'll catch him tonight, 8 to 9 on SR 1029 FM. The Game at Lloyd Vance. That was an absolute crazy, crazy weekend in the NFL. I know we got a lot to dive into. Let's start with the big one. Mahomes goes down. Chiefs dynasty is absolutely finished, done, finito, via con Dios. See you later. I'll ask you though: is the run over? Do you foresee them retooling? And if that's the case, what do they need to do?
Well, I'm not going to per se say the run is over, Q, but it's a lot of humble pie out there, Q. And I predicted that they would find a way to get it done, but obviously this team has too many holes, as you were kind of alluding to, and this injury of Patrick Mahomes is just not the icing on the cake, but it's the tip of the iceberg, and
Yeah,
they do have to kind of. I'm not. Some people are saying it's a tear down rebuild. No way. Come on.
I think it's a
There's
retool, but I think the run that we've seen, I think this nucleus with these guys, this run, in my opinion, it's over.
Yeah, I do definitely think it's a retool, and this is going to be the first time since 2014 that this group is not in the playoffs, and they have to look in the mirror, particularly Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes is going to have to attack his rehab, and then what does Kelsey do? He's just looked extremely old out there, and does he want to come back? I don't think he should. Yeah, he had 7 catches for 70 yards, but yesterday, but there's just a lot of times where he just cannot get open. And other than Rasheed Rice, no one was really making plays. And you got to tip your cap to the Chargers. They took it to him. It reminded me of like a boxing match, Q, where there was no fear. They
Right,
came in there
right,
like Buster Douglas and they
right,
knocked them to bleep out,
right.
and they were all limping off. They threw Tony James out, Jefferson out the game, but
But
they
that
were
not
physical.
but your point, the reason, and I love the fact that you threw out the boxing analogy, but what does that tell you? The mystique, the fear. It's not there anymore. Like teams are not fearful of the Kansas City Chiefs, and they really haven't been this season. It's one of the reasons I thought they were going to have a down season. It's one of the reasons I thought they weren't going to make the playoffs. They weren't going to win the AFC West. They're an older team. I think the Philadelphia Eagles broke them in the Super Bowl, to be quite honest with you. I thought that the Hurts throw to Smith basically snatched their friggin' soul in front of billions of people. And that was pretty much all she wrote. They never were able to get off the mat. And this whole, well, they're still Kansas City. Check out the jersey and the names. And look, you said it. We said it earlier in this, but I felt that it's ran its course. And when you look at it from an X and O standpoint, you can't have your quarterback the leading rusher. Pacheco's done nothing. Hunt's done nothing. They lose a couple wide receivers. They got the suspensions. They got the injury. Kelsey looks slow. The defense looks old. And then, as you mentioned, the coup de grace, unfortunately, Mahomes gets injured. It's just not their year. Um, and I believe the AFC is getting younger and they're getting more hungrier too.
Yes, and you look at other quarterbacks in this division, particularly Bo Nix. I mean, he played at such a high level this week. I'm sure we'll get to that. 4 touchdowns. He just in total control. And Herbert, this was a gutty performance by him, and it just showed you, yeah, maybe these guys are getting younger, and the Chiefs have to catch up to them. So now it's going to be on Brett Veach to kind of figure this thing out. Him and Andy Reid in terms of personnel going into the draft, going into free agency. A big thing, Q, obviously is that offensive line. They've just had a myriad of injuries and just underperformances on that line. And it just showed itself yesterday in the physicality of the Chargers. They sacked Mahomes 5 times. He gutted it out, making some plays, and you thought, okay, maybe he gets this field goal with Butker at the end. But he gets that hit and he comes up limping, and it's all done. So they got to figure this thing out. But the train's going to move on. And as I was talking to my son about this, watching the games, it's going to be exciting because let's face it, you're not going to have the Chiefs in
I
the mix.
said the same
And
thing.
there's some other teams, you just would always pencil them in. They would always be at the top of the lineup. But now you
Correct.
have some young teams stepping forward, and we're going to see who really wants to take advantage of this situation.
Yeah, it's a great, great point you bring up, and kind of leads me to Josh Allen and Buffalo Bills because if you recall, this was I think you mentioned like the show me kind of test, right? If May was going to take that next step, beat the Buffalo Bills. You beat them earlier in the season, vastly two different teams at this point in the season, or is Josh Allen, to the chagrin of some that are tuning in, going to go in the phone booth and become Superman? And that's what he did. They were able to run the football. Buffalo made the stops. May had an opportunity late in that game. Like that could have been your defining moment. Young quarterback, here we go. But you're up 21 to nothing at home. I mean, you have to figure out a way to put Buffalo to bed. And you can talk about the calls and the lack of calls and the officiating. I get it. It's we talk about it at nauseum, right? But again, you got to overcome that. And you're up 21 to nothing. And you just got to figure out a way to just close them out. And I think what we saw yesterday, a Buffalo team that can go on the road and beat anyone in the AFC.
Yes, they showed a lot of hunger, and you know, down 21 nothing, as you said, 21-7 at the half, and you're thinking, all right, this thing's over. McDermott's not going to be able to get this thing done again. But the Bills at the end of the seasons have really performed well under Sean McDermott. Won 7 of 9 in 2024, game winning streak at the end of 2023. So they've making this playoff push. And as you said, Q, even if they can't catch the Patriots and win this division, they're going to be a very dangerous team going into playoffs because they have Cook that can run the football. You have Allen that can make a lot of plays. Their offensive line is doing a great job protecting him. And then you're even having some other guys step up in terms of Shakir and some of these other receivers making plays. And their defense is beat up, but they're still finding ways to make plays. And it was kind of disappointing. They're chanting MVP, but Drake May, 14 to 23, 155, no TDs, one interception in this game.
Yeah, and listen, obviously, the lack of holding calls that were not called yesterday, it's alarming. And Mike Rabel comes out and he says what he says, and I get the frustration. Patriots defenders came out, but I think that's kind of sour grapes because again, you're up 21 to nothing at home. Like deliver the knockout blow, and it just shows that you're not ready just yet to beat your big brother. I think the way the AFC is, Denver at home, Bo Nix, even though he's inconsistent at times, that was the game of his career. I mean, it was he was just locked in. Now, I still don't understand Sean Payton's thinking at times, like, why are you going for two? When ultimately, if you did the math, it would have been a 9-point game. And then, the play calling late on fourth down. It just,
Yeah.
I don't, I think sometimes these coaches, it's like almost self sabotage. But I'll say this, Green Bay yesterday, you lose Parsons, you lose Watson. But I can appreciate what Green Bay did late in that game because they figure, hey, we're going to go for the knockout blow. And unfortunately, a wide receiver gets hurt. It's not as bad as we thought. But they understood possessions at that moment going forward, we're going to be limited. So we're going to take a shot. I can't really say the same thing for Denver because you're at home. You got a really good defense. If you want to put them away, you don't. I just did not like. They took the ball out of Bo Nix's hands. That's my problem, right? You go 2 yard run, 4 yard run, 3 yard run, and then you go -1 on 4th and 1 from the Green Bay 37. You turn over and downs. Like the kid's having that good of a game. Like keep the ball in his hands and make a play.
Correct. And I almost was like, let Lutz kick the field goal, Q. And you would think a veteran coach would guys that lean on that, lean on the special teams. And then when it was that key, all right, we're going to go for it, leave it in the young quarterback's hands. That's me, just play after play. And RJ Harvey had a good closing TD, but he's had trouble moving the pile in terms of um, short yardage
Yes.
situations. So we'll see how that goes. But that was a great win for them. Head scratching moment, as you said, on that fourth down, but they got away with it. And then obviously can't talk about this game without the Packers losing Parsons to that left knee ACL. So they're going to have to figure this thing out. But Denver, it looks like the road in the AFC may go through there.
Well, this is why I thought the win was impressive. Look, they're 12-2. And if you go back, they started the season 1-2. They had two brutal losses against the Colts and the Chargers. They lost on late field goals, right? They've ripped off all these wins in a row. What is it, 11 now? 12
10
now?
game,
Oh,
10 game winning streak. Yep.
okay. No, 11, right? Because they started 1-2. So they're 12-2.
Oh, there you go.
There
Yep.
you go. So my liberal college math, right? Your college. So, but we kept opining about their offense. Oh, when is the offense? They put up 34 points against a pretty damn good defense in Green Bay. Now, they've got Jacksonville. The Chiefs, they'll have Minshew out there, and the Chargers will probably playing for a playoff spot. And right now, they're in the driver's seat. Now, here's the beauty of this. They might have it locked up, and then you can kind of rest guys. And if you take that loss, you get it out of your way. Because, again, I mentioned this, I don't see them winning 17 straight. That's a tough order. But I like what I saw when they were aggressive and they were letting the quarterback throw the ball down the field. He made some exceptional throws yesterday. Michael says, "How about those Broncos, Lloyd? Are you a believer yet?"
I'm buying more into his stock. I'm not saying he's in the MVP race with Stafford and Allen and those
Oh, I
guys, but
did.
that kid played tremendous. And what
Yeah.
I like, Q, is he's spreading the football around. You're seeing Franklin get catches. You're seeing Sutton get catches. And that offensive line with Bowles and those guys, they're underrated. They're doing a great job moving the pile and protecting him. And then obviously their defense, Surtain the second. I mean, he's just tremendous. The way he accelerated on that ball and got that interception, that was a huge play in that game. And, you know, Vance Joseph is hitting all the right keys with that defense, and then Sean Payton taking care of the offense. So they are going to be a very tough team. This is a playoff eliminator against Jacksonville coming up. Looking forward to that game.
Yeah, you were talking about, seeding going forward, right? I mean, any of these teams now that we mentioned could be playing in the AFC Championship. The loss of Parsons really hurts Green Bay. I think teams are going to attack it a little differently, attack their defense, obviously, uh, differently. They're still in good shape. The Lions, uh, they're not in good shape. I mean, you see what the Rams are doing offensively. I said that Stafford and McVay are on the same sheet of music. Now, that one touchdown that they gave to Parkinson, that was not a touchdown. They clearly got that one wrong, but they put up 41. Stafford is right now in the driver's seat with MVP. I think Nick's past May, and I think Allen's still there, but I would edge to Stafford. Do you look at the Rams right now and say they are the most dominating, complete team in the NFL, or is it wait a little bit? They're really good, but they're probably the best team in the NFC, not the whole NFL.
Well, Q, they're definitely the best in the NFC, and we kind of were moving them to that top position in the whole NFL, but then they stumbled against Carolina. But I think that was just a bad situation for them. They looked past the opponent, but they were firmly prepared for the Detroit Lions. And I heard you talking about before I came on. They shut down Gibbs and Montgomery in that rushing game, and then defensively, Chris Schul is doing a great job with this unit, and they have playmakers all over the place in that unit. And Detroit, every year is different. We talk about like Kansas City struggles, but last season, remember Detroit scoring all those points, all those times, 50 points like 2 or 3 times during the season, but they're just not the same team, and they're going to probably have to retool because I don't see them making the playoffs either, Q.
Yeah, and then they gave up 45 points to Washington in the playoff game, and Daniels had his coming out party, right? It's just it's so week to week. I mean, Carolina, it was right there. Tampa Bay stubbing their toe. All you have to do is go out on the road and beat a bad Saints team, and they had to play late, the little draw up the gut, and then the long field goal. That's a crippling loss for the Panthers. It actually opens up the door now for Tampa Bay in the NFC South. I mean, Carolina beats the Rams, and then they turn around and they lose to the Saints.
Yeah, it's inexplicable. And you're watching this game, you're like, what's going on? Bryce Young and this unit, and this was their chance because it was the Thursday night where Atlanta pulled the upset on Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay's really leaking oil. Todd Bowles is getting upset in the presser, and you're like, okay, Sunday, Carolina's going to move forward, but Tyler Shuck did play very well for the Saints in this game, team leading rusher, and threw the ball very well, but Carolina's got to find a way to win that game, and Dowdell got shut down in their running game. So we'll see how it turns out. They do play Tampa, 16 and 18 coming up, and this bad division will be sorted out between these two teams.
And that's, as we look around the NFC, the Eagles kind of silence the offensive critics, at least for 1 week. I guess the chatter that Jalen Hurts should be benched. I told you 28 points was going to win this game. Kenny Pickett stinks. I text you while the game was going on. This guy's not an NFL quarterback. I don't know what the hell the Raiders are doing. They need to blow everything up. But they get absolutely annihilated 31 to nothing. Eagles probably could have put up 50 yesterday. Are we, without being prisoners of the moment, we thought they should run the football a little bit. Hurts was efficient. The defense did the rest, and they got the W because there was no way we can come on the air and explain how the Eagles lose a football game to the Raiders. So they just took care of business. And I feel like the Eagles winning yesterday, even though it's kind of in our backyard, almost an afterthought of what took place in the NFL yesterday.
Yeah, Q. It was a get right game for him, but let's face it, the Raiders are a 2-win team, and they did what they needed to do to knock them out early and move forward. But Hurts may have silenced some of his critics, but it's a situation where you look at who he's facing, but he did a nice job. I know in his presser he got a little upset. He said, "People are forgetting who I am and where I came from." So he's got that chip on his shoulder, and he's going to have to prove it. Q, as they move towards the playoffs. The big thing is that he did not throw the ball a lot in this victory, and it just shows you when they lean on the running game and don't get too pass happy, it's a recipe for success for the Eagles.
Glenn chimes in, Q. You know, I'm giddy. I'm a Saints fan. He might be the only Saint fan I ever met in my life. Well, there's two that I actually know. But he said, how about this? O line stay, show slides diagonally into the path of the Carolina defender. And what did they do? They sold it. They all threw their hands in the air. I mean, think about this. The Carolina Panthers might have lost the division on a foolish penalty, which, by the way, the Saints have practiced that play. I was reading this morning. They practiced that play to try to draw a flag. And I mean, it worked to perfection. You would say to yourself, you got to have stones, onions to run that play, and they did it with 9 seconds, and then you get the field goal as time expires. That's crazy.
Yeah, you got to tip your cap to Kellen Moore. I mean, the Saints are fighting. They're continue to put a good effort out there, and you like to see that teams this time of season that have a lot of losses like they do. They're just coming out there putting good effort. And Tyler Shuck, he's a good young player, and then you have some veterans like Cam Jordan still out there, putting in the work. So good win for them. But Carolina, they definitely got to be scratching their heads and wondering what happened, and can they still get to the playoffs?
You surprised that Washington is going to shut down Jade or has decided to shut down Jaden Daniels?
I'm surprised how late they did it, Q. I mean, so yeah, it's good that they did, and then surprisingly, Mariota they go out there and get the win over the Giants, and but
Yes. That's
yeah,
good.
they needed to shut him down. Cliff Kingsbury, bring the two of them back next season, and then maybe they can figure out this offense. They got to fix that offensive line, find some other playmakers behind McLaurin. So, but yeah, I wasn't surprised they needed to do that.
Robert chimes in on X, Raiders fan Q. What are the chances that they blow it up after the season and Tom Brady really takes over? Does that cancel him out in the booth? I guess what he's asking is, do you envision a scenario where Tom Brady, you know, we know that he has input. I guess at this point, um, by the way, the Brady and Mahomes they mirror each other. By the way, the injuries, right? But do you think he'll take a different role with the Raiders and really be more hands on, like a lot hands on?
Yeah, I tend to think he's enjoying broadcasting too much, and he's making a lot of money. That
There you
he'll
go.
have some involvement, but John Spytek is still the general manager. Uh, as we were talking about all season, we don't think Pete Carroll's coming back. So they may need to find a new head coach, somebody to work with John Spytek and clean this thing up. But as always, I tell Raiders fans, Mark Davis is the owner of that team. Tom Brady has about 5%. So he's not making decisions. He is he is in Mark Davis's ear, but Mark Davis, in the end, it's his team. We'll see what he does
Yeah,
here.
but could he be worse? I mean, look, he's not giving up 37 million a year, calling games, but could he be worse than what they have? I mean, they obviously got the decision wrong in the quarterback to bring in Geno Smith to trade for Geno Smith, I should say, and then you sign him to an extension. He's turned out to be one of the NFL's worst quarterbacks.
Yeah, that was a bad decision. And I think that Pete Carroll came in there and they bought into what he was selling. And let's face it, at his age and the way that the Raiders are right now, they need to move forward without him. And he decided, Pete Carroll, like, all right, let me sign my guy. Brings Geno Smith there. And let's face it, all the interceptions that he's thrown, I think it's about 15, 16. Uh, they need to move forward from him. And maybe they do get Mendoza as the number one overall pick if their draft order stays the way it is right now.
Uh, Luca Brazzi says, I'm hoping the Eagles' schedule is getting easier. They get on a roll into the playoffs. Mark the tape. McKee starts the final week of the season to rest Hurts. Yeah. I mean, well, are we going outside the box? It's like, I think Somebody tweeted yesterday, McKeon for Hurts. Oh, he's not benched. Wait, the game was 31-0. Like, let's just stop already.
Yeah, I
Don't
mean,
don't. Yeah, I was just going to say, don't think for 1 minute because they scored 31 points against a bad Raiders team. That's mask all their offensive deficiencies an entire season.
no, I agree that they still got to find and run the ball consistently, and let's face that offensive mind
Uh,
has
yeah, and I'll do you one
underperformed.
better. I think Washington is a live dog against the Eagles next weekend.
They cannot look past them, Q. They still have JCM and some of these young guys that want to play. And Mariota, let's face it, he's that veteran, steady backup, and McLaurin's fully healthy in this game. So we'll see how the Eagles play. But as we've seen, they're so up and down, Q. This may be their downturn. They need to stay focused in this game. And even though Dallas is lost and they're probably going to win the NFC East no matter what, they have to stay sharp, get ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about Joe Burrow the other day, has his comments, and then he comes out and he has a horrible performance against Baltimore. And I know I've talked to you about this over the last several years. Cincinnati, the Cleveland franchise, and we know Cleveland's just a joke of a franchise. It's unfortunate because they have very good fans in Ohio. I did radio in Ohio. I know that fan base with the Browns and Cincinnati. Um, I think the misconception with Cincinnati, right? I mean, they paid guys like Kenny Anderson, Boomer Esiason, Carson Palmer, Joe Burrow. Like, I, it's just too similar to Andrew Luck. Now, he had to come back. He had to come out and basically say those comments were not directed towards my teammates. You have to say that after you played as poorly as you did against Baltimore on Sunday. But they had contract issues, they had injuries. Um, I think Zach Taylor might be on his way out. I don't know where what side of the fence you're on with Zach Taylor, but do you envision a scenario where Burrow forces his hand for a trade and they decide, okay, fresh slate, let's see if we can get a haul of draft picks?
Yeah, no, I mean this situation reminds me a lot of Carson Palmer and his time with the Bengals. He was very frustrated with the leadership there. They weren't putting a piece around him. They went to the playoffs often, and he was getting beat up, and the team was underperforming. And he ended up retiring Q for a year, if you remember. And then they traded him to the Raiders so he got what he wanted. But a lot of players I talked around the league that have been through Cincinnati are just frustrated there in terms of leadership. Uh, I still think they're going to find a way to placate Joe Burrow, bring him back, and it may be Zach Taylor leaving. They changed the defensive coordinator last year, bringing in Al Golden. He has not been the answer. Maybe this time they look on the offensive side with the head coach and bring in some fresh faces there and somebody that Joe Burrow could work with because they do have some pieces there. Obviously, they're two high paid receivers, Burrow, but they got to fix that defense as well. So I think he comes back, but a lot of work to do there.
Well, listen, there's no anything that suggests he wants a trade or he's asked for a trade, but sometimes you do need that fresh start, right? I mean, there's going to be quarterback needy teams. It's unlikely that, you know, I mean, I hate to say it. You look at Atlanta, they draft Penix, they gave Kirk Cousins that money. Now, would Cincinnati be interested in a Kirk Cousins who's 38 years old? And now, hear me out, because they know what are they going to get back? A haul of draft picks. Like, I feel as though what Cincinnati's doing right now is wasting Joe Burrow's prime, and they're not fixing the defense, or they just have so many misses when it comes to how that organization is run. I mean, they knew they had to go out and do what? They had to get guys that can get to the quarterback. They drafted kid Shamar Stewart. The kid's played in 5 games. I mean, right now it looks like he's a bust. Top 20 draft pick, right? I
Yeah.
mean, he's the kid that didn't want to show up, training camp, OTAs. They get the linebacker in the second round, Knight. He hasn't been bad, but they need impact players, and they've got some weapons on the offensive line. Their defense just is atrocious. So if I'm a quarterback and I know that my offensive line is not always keeping me upright, I'm enduring a lot of hits, and I always have to play from behind because my defense can't hold or protect the lead. I would get frustrated after a while, especially if I'm a franchise quarterback.
It totally would, Q. And it's a lot we talked about always with the Cincinnati Bengals in terms of their front office. They have the smallest scouting department in the National Football League, and many members of that department are of the Brown family. So, you know, they've
because they're set in their
misevaluated.
ways.
Yeah, they've
They're still
misevaluated over and over again.
yeah, the old NFL, right? I think the Giants are the same way. We're talking legacy franchise. They're set in their old ways when it comes to analytics and talent evaluation and scouts and drafting the right players and kind of looking beyond the X's and O's. And sometimes you get these older generational, right, the families that own these teams and they don't want to budge. And I think Cincinnati's like that. The Giants are like that. I don't know what the hell's going on in Cleveland. Sanders kind of coming back down to life. I know some of those picks were not on him. They did not show up at all. The Bears took care of business. That's a nice win for the Bears because I think again, what do? You got a bad team in front of you. You take care of them. You knock them out early. You get another win, and the Bears are really starting to position themselves nicely in the NFC North.
They are. They're a dangerous team, Q, and big game against Chicago coming up with Green Bay Week 16. That'll be on Saturday. It's basically for the division, and then they play Detroit in a big game Week 18. So some games still there for them to be played. But yeah, Caleb Williams is looking very efficient in the pocket. Made some great throws on the move in terms of throwing it through traffic and avoiding pressure. And this team, you got to tip your hat to what Ben Johnson's doing. I mean, they're buying into
Bravo.
everything, and they're right in the mix. In terms of being one of the hot teams going into the playoffs. So yeah, I definitely got my eye on them, and that was a solid win for them, 31-3.
Monday night, Miami and Pittsburgh. Anything stand out on this one? I mean, obviously both teams are right there mathematically. I mean, the Dolphins are still alive. Pittsburgh, looking around the AFC North, like who the hell wants to win that division? They're laying 3 at home. Should be crappy conditions. We know Miami on the road in the cold. We've seen it too many times. Any feel for tonight's Monday night game?
Yeah, I was looking at it, and the Steelers are a 3.5 point favorite. And the cold's going to be a factor in this one. It's going to be Monday Night Football in Pittsburgh. It's been snowing in Pennsylvania, so Miami's coming up here. They are 6-7, and they are on a winning streak. But I think the Steelers will find a way, kind of a last stand cue to kind of win this game and then win this division. So Aaron Rodgers was efficient last game that they played. Expect some big throws from him, and I want to see Miami in terms of TJ Watt. Is he going to be able to play? Because they're going to need pressure on Tua to win this one. But I expect Miami to win it. Uh, that 3.5 may be a push situation, but I definitely think that Pittsburgh may win this one.
Platinum Six chimes in. Q, I'm loving your Chiefs take. Mahomes tearing his ACL with less than a minute left in a game that most likely, this is actually, he tweeted this to me yesterday, will get them eliminated is the most maybe did I make a deal with the devil for the dynasty run I've ever seen. This was actually yesterday. He sent this, I think, with 30 seconds to go left in the game. I think that's when he kind of walked off. Look, you never like to see it. It's really unfortunate, but that's part of the game with some of these injuries. I mean, I'm watching this Colts game yesterday, and I was actually worried for Phillip Rivers because he can't throw the ball down the field. And I give him credit. Phillip Rivers yesterday kind of reminded me of that, your drunk uncle at the family barbecue that's drinking the beer and he's like, just keep going deep, keep going deep, right? And then you run, you pass the Cadillac, you go to the neighbor's yard, they're waving your hands and he's taking a couple more sips and pops, right? And then he sits down, he's like, I'm out of breath. Like, it was great to see that he, as you like to say, pushed the ball down the field on that short touchdown pass. They're going to stick with him. But and Seattle, thank God, I was not going to be able to come on the air if Darnold didn't leave them to that late field goal attempt. But yeah, that was something with Rivers yesterday. But going back to Mahomes, it's just really unfortunate because you're talking about an all-time great Hall of Famer, MVP, Super Bowl MVP, champion, face of the franchise, and you lose him late in the season like that. It's never a good thing.
No, it's very tough for the Chiefs, and you just didn't want to see it happen. But I think Mahomes and the Chiefs will come back from this. And then going to Rivers, though, 44 years old. What a gritty performance, Q. As you were said, you know, he's old, he's chunky.
Yeah.
Look, he that helmet was a little tighter, the jersey a little tighter than 5 years ago. But he
Yeah.
went out there and he battled, and he kept fighting and he threw a touchdown pass and that 60-yarder that Indy made, I'm like, oh man, they may win this game. But Darnold, he did a great job driving Seattle down the field. And then Myers hits that 56-yard game winner and Myers 6 field goals in this game. I'm sure Seattle's going to kick all those field goals, but he was money and they win a tight game that they had to have. And then the other side of it, the Colts are looking more and more like they're not going to make the playoffs.
So I saw someone tweet it out. They said, Philip Rivers throwing a pick late in the game right before the 60 minutes promo reminds me of 2011, which was actually very good. Yeah, I think the Colts are in trouble. They got the 49ers coming up, but you're right. I mean, credit for him, man. Still plays with that passion and that energy. A lot of young quarterbacks can kind of take a note or two direction from Philip Rivers. I did want to ask you also about the Jets. They lose to Jacksonville yesterday. They give up 48 and they turn around, they fire Wilkes. I feel as though I keep pushing back the goalpost, but my Aaron Glenn's might get a year, might get us. I'm wondering now, they're just not competitive. They're a really bad football team. Do they bring Aaron Glenn back?
Everybody I've talked to said that Aaron Glenn is going to come back, and I think Steve Wilkes looks. Let's face it, he's a fall guy here. Unfortunately, when a team underachieves and there's pressure on the coach, particularly a guy in his first season, they say, okay, change some members, key members of your staff, and kind of reboot this thing. But we'll see if he's able to turn it around, Q. But let's face it, the Jets are just a horrible franchise, unfortunately, for their fans and you talk about ever since that Joe Namath run, Super Bowl run, they just have not been
Sold their
right.
soul.
And even Rex Ryan, after that, they had their mini run there, and they just have not been the same. They can't get to the playoffs, and that was a bad loss for them. They just got thoroughly dominated in that game. Jacksonville, they looked good and they looked playoff ready, but the Jets, they're going to have to go back to drawing board again.
Aaron Glenn probably survives because they went through three quarterbacks.
Yeah, he'll have something to say. Okay, we have a new GM here and a new coach. Let's try to rebuild this thing with their guys. They're still cleaning house from some of the old regime. Some of the guys that Joe Douglas had brought in there. But yeah, they're just a wayward franchise, and they got once again. I almost feel like I'm saying this every year for them. They got to find a quarterback. They got to find that building piece,
Well,
and
that's
go from there.
that's what I was going to ask you. The Giants right now sit at number one, top overall draft pick. Raiders are second. They need a quarterback. Tennessee's third. I think they're going to stick with Ward as it is. Cleveland's going to need a quarterback. The Jets are going to need a quarterback. I think if the Giants are 1 and 2, they're in good position, right? Someone said Giants fans suggested that if they're at one, you sit there and you draft Mendoza and you trade Jackson Dart. I just think it's foolish. And a couple guys were saying, well, look what Brian Daboll, Jackson Dart was playing much better under Daboll. Well, that might be the case, but there were still design runs. So, he's going to take his hits. I get it. I understand. But I guess the question is, Mendoza wins the Heisman. The kid had a phenomenal season. You see him go. You see him being the first quarterback taken.
Yeah, I think that's the case because Q, a lot of the elite quarterbacks are going back into school, and that 2027 draft's probably going to be a little bit better than this one in terms of quarterbacks. So we'll see how it works out with Mendoza. If I'm the Giants, I trade that pick, to be honest with you, Q. Try to get some 4 or 5 picks and let some other team jump up there and get their guy, and then they can rebuild, with all those draft picks.
Frankie C chimes in. Colts fan here. Q. Colts should have gone for it. I know you didn't mention this, but Colts should have gone for it on 4th and 3. Seattle had no timeouts. You had under 52 seconds to go. 47 seconds in today's NFL. You know that after the kick is way too much time. You got to find a way or a play to get 3 yards, and then you win the game right there. It's an interesting point. I didn't think about it. That was 4th and 3. The kick goes through with 47 seconds. And if I pull up the chart, I think Darnold, would they go 3 plays to set up that field goal? Let me just
Yeah, when they were setting
oh
that
no,
field
I'm
goal. Oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. They went 5 plays, pardon me. They went 5 plays. They had the 17-yard pass, incompletion, 8-yard pass on 2nd and 10, Then on 3rd and 2, they didn't. I thought maybe they would try to run it quick, get down, but they didn't do that. 25 seconds, incompletion. He airmails it, and then they kick the field goal, and then you get the obviously the Rivers pick. I mean, would you have gone for it on 4th and 3 there?
Yeah, I was when they were lining up, I was like, I didn't think they were going to make the kick. To be honest with you, Q. You know, you had the former Saints kicker who has struggled this season. That's their guy now, and this is their third kicker. And I was like, oh, he's going to miss this, and maybe it could have been a chance for Steichen and them to go for it, close it out. But yeah, when it went through, I was like, okay, there's just a lot of time on that clock there, and you know, my son's yelling all, well, you know, Sam Darnold, he'll blow this thing, but you know, he's got JSN, he's got all those weapons, and he was able to move the ball down quickly. And Myers, as I said, they didn't need to get much yardage there. I think something happened on a kickoff where they didn't have to move that far in
Oh,
terms of
yeah,
setting it up.
15 yards. Yeah,
And Myers, you know, drills that 56 yarder. So yeah, tough situation for the Colts, and it was so much excitement early in the season, and now it's kind of just fizzling for them.
Lloyd Vance kind enough to join me on cue. Rich Quinones here. Yeah, that's a really good point you bring up. They started. They got the ball. Actually, no. I'm sorry. Kick 56 yard, 35. Actually, the ball was brought out to the 37, so you had the return of
Okay.
28, so it wasn't kicked out of bounds. Pardon me. I stand corrected. I want to be accurate there. Catch Lloyd tonight, 8 to 9. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. All right, I have a so I think I already know who your game ball and your lackey is now. Sentiment. I feel like you would have went to Rivers if they won. I don't think you did that. I'm going to go to the quarterback that you have been very critical of and say the game ball went to Trevor Lawrence.
No, I did not give it to him, and my son kept saying, "If he wins this game, you're giving him the game
Wow.
ball." And then he said, then he was like, "All right, give it to Bo Nix." And I definitely thought
Oh,
about that,
yeah, yeah.
4 touchdowns, but I ended up giving it to a running back. This guy played very well, and it was all the way back on Thursday night football. Uh, Bijan Robinson was just tremendous in that win. Uh, they were underdog team over the Bucks, and 19 rushes, 93 yards, a TD, and then he had 8 receptions for 82. So he was just the engine for that
Wow,
team.
I'm
So I
a
gave
little
him my game ball.
wow. I mean, if that's the case, you could have gave it to Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, he played a great game as
Yeah,
well. You know,
11 for 166, 3 touchdowns. All right, I already know who your lackey is.
all
It's
right,
it's
go
got
ahead.
it's got to be Kenny Pickett.
I thought about it, 2 gloves, but no, no, that I could have gave a team award to them. You know, Pete Carroll.
Was it a
He,
quarterback?
yes, it was.
Not Pickett, not Sanders.
We talked about him earlier.
Oh, Burrow.
Yes, Joe Burrow. Unfortunately, he gets the lackey. He just and the fans were giving it to him on the bench. You're yelling all kinds of stuff at him, but 25 and 39, 225, no TD, no TDs, 2 interceptions in this game, and that pick six by Van Noy, that Gilman return, that was a game breaker for them. So, yeah, I gave it to Joe Burrow as the lackey this week.
Let me get to a couple of comments. Jody Summers Point chiming in. Q Lloyd, always enjoy the banter in the back and forth. Stay there, stay warm. Q, I'm sure you got a little hot toddy going on right now. You mentioned it, you called it. They finally gave the ball to number 26. Do you think that's going to be a recipe for success for the Eagles going forward? I think Saquon had 20 plus carries. I said maybe 25. What do you think?
No, I think that's huge. You got to give him his carries, and hopefully the offensive line's ready to step forward. Fred Johnson's been kind of struggling for them, but I think they're going to get Lane Johnson back, and yeah, it was a good win for them, and Hurts didn't throw the ball too much.
Yeah, I got some Broncos fans saying this is utterly ridiculous. How do you not give it to Bo Nix?
Yeah, I knew I was going to get some pushback on that, but it was a great effort by him. I mean, there's 4 TDs, and he was spreading the football around all over the place. But Bijan had a great game too, and it's tough because there are a lot of guys I wrote down in terms of honorable mention, and he was number one, and then you talk about Josh Allen, and then the Chargers had 5 sacks of Mahomes, so they have a defensive end that played a real nice game for them, and you can't forget about Stafford too, Q. I mean, he's in
He's
that MVP conversation.
yeah. A couple guys were asking before, when you measure Stafford and Allen, You talk stats or body of work or who they beat, and I just to me, Stafford's numbers are just they're mind boggling when you think about it. I mean, they just blow you away, and it's because he's on the same page with the head coach. I mean, it's phenomenal. Like I can't penalize Stafford for the weapons that they have around him. That's not fair. He's his numbers are just they're gaudy. They really are. And aside from the two pick game against Carolina, which they lost, he just bounces back yesterday and he just shreds apart the Lions. Unless Josh Allen has this monumental, run like Roethlisberger. Remember that 7, 8, 9 game stretch years ago Roethlisberger had when he threw for like 2,500 yards and like 15 touchdowns. Like I just think it's Stafford's year.
Yeah, I do. It's looking at that point. Like he's head and shoulders in the MVP race. 37 TDs, 5 interceptions, and he has that quick release. I mean, and he knows that offense inside and out, as you were saying. And Puka Nakua playing at a very high level, got a little banged up, 9 catches, 181. We'll see how that hamstring injury to Devontae Adams, how that affects him.
It I just think it's you can't overstate if you look at the NFL right now. Prescott, Stafford, Goff, Mahomes, May, Darnold, Love, Allen, Nix, Trevor Lawrence, Herbert, Williams. Like they're all over Baker Mayfield, all over 20 something odd touchdown passes. The second most touchdown passes thrown in the league are 29. Stafford has 37. And look, Prescott's putting up a lot of yardage, but they're a bad football team, and he's got twice as many picks and only 26 touchdowns. Like to me, it's Stafford. Now, Allen, what if Allen finishes with he throws for 300 yards, that gets him to 4,200, 4,300, and he throws 9 touchdowns and no picks, and he gets it 34. Like it's still not going to be in comparison because Stafford's on such a pace right now, it's utterly ridiculous. Like Allen's in line right now for, if you looked at his numbers, projected 3,900 yards, 30 touchdowns, 12 picks. That's still 7 less than Stafford. And I haven't even given you Stafford projects out to have well over 4,500 yards, 45 touchdowns, and 6 picks. It's like, wow.
Yeah, it's one of those amazing seasons. I mean, mind you, kind of like what Peyton Manning did that one year where he threw 55 touchdowns and he was just in total command of offense. And we'll see. Those interceptions are going to hurt Allen's candidacy, obviously, but you have to remember total touchdowns with him. And I think he leads quarterbacks in rushing this season. So a lot going on. You have 3 weeks left, and yeah, the race is going to be fun. And as some of the texters were saying, Bo Nix, you got to throw him in that mix, and Drake May's kind of falling out of there.
Yes, because of yesterday. I will ask you before I let you get out of here. Um, if you look at the Rams, Seattle, Denver, Buffalo, I mean, I'll still throw New England in there. Like each team, look, they're all very good teams, but if I were to say, okay, give me their weakness, like Buffalo, what would you say?
Buffalo obviously is the playmakers around Josh Allen. They do have Cook, but sometimes Kincaid and Knox they're not making plays, and then you're talking about Gabe Davis. You weren't trying to get somebody like him to step forward.
How about the run defense? Got to clean that up. Got to fix
Yeah,
that.
definitely a lot of injuries in terms of that defense. Sean McDermott's got to find a way, maybe blitzing and so forth. And they still have Matt Milano and some guys back there making some plays, but still have a lot of injuries. And then Tre'Davious White, he's just getting burned a lot for them.
How about Seattle?
Seattle, it's Darnold. Everybody's going to say, okay, what's going on with him? Is he going to be that consistent guy that they can count on in playoffs? And then Kenneth Walker is not running the football the way that he was a couple years ago. Charbonnet as well, and JSN's making some plays, but can you really count on Cooper Cup down the line at his age? And Rashid Shaheed, yeah, he's good getting deep, but can he run those intermediate routes?
And then we said Buffalo, we said Seattle, and the Rams.
The Rams, I want to see about this Devontae Adams injury. That may affect them, but they're running the ball effectively. Kyron Williams and Quorum, they're driving the football down the field. Their offensive line, they've had all their starters together the majority of the season, and defensively, they're getting a lot of turnovers and pressure on the quarterback. So Not a lot of the weaknesses I see with them. It's going to be interesting to see, though, are they consistent because they do have that Carolina loss that everybody talks about.
And then Denver and New England.
Denver, it's the running game. RJ Harvey's done a nice job kind of stepping in there, but is he physical enough? Defensively, they've done a good job getting after the quarterback, but they have to find that balance. And they're also, they had a lot of playmakers step up this week, but they're another one. You're like, all right, who's going to be that number one guy that Knicks can count on in key situations? Uh,
If
yep,
real quick, if Denver gets back J.K. Dobbins, though, that is huge.
it is.
Late in
He
the
has a
season,
foot.
I think
Yeah,
Peyton said he could return. Um, did he
he
not?
has that. Yeah, he has that foot injury, and they're kind of looking at it, and they're like, okay, they can bring him. He's kind of that banger, that they can run up in the line. So counting on him.
Yeah, I don't think he's lost for the season. I don't think he is. I think he was placed on injury reserve, but that was like well over a month ago.
Yeah, they place him on IR, and they probably have to win a couple playoff games without him. But
Yeah,
if they get that bye queue, that's gonna be huge for them. So,
yeah.
and then you asked about what New England.
Yep, just to close it out.
Yeah, Drake May. You look at that performance, you're like, all right, is he the guy to carry this team? Everybody's obviously talked about their soft schedule and have they been tested enough? So we'll see about them. Their defense also is kind of no name-ish. They have Gonzalez and some other players out there, but they don't really scare you defensively. And they're another one in terms of the receivers. They really don't have a guy that's really like, all right, throw him the ball. You have Booty and you have Diggs stepping up here and there, Hunter Henry at the tight end position, but I think New England is definitely weaker than Denver at this point in the season.
All right, brother. I know you'll be on the air soon. 8 o'clock, Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. Give him a follow at Lloyd Vance. That's SR 1029 FM The Game. It's also on the X platform as well. You and I will do it again later in the week with BYP, and then, of course, on a Friday. Always appreciate you, brother. Great insight as always, pal.
All right, Q, thanks for having me on.
All right, there you have it. My guy, Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us. A couple of minutes to play. By the way, how about horrible news, right? Well, first of all, you had the horrible beach massacre, which is just very just sad and news. I mean, unbelievable. Especially everyone getting set for starting to celebrate. Hanukkah for those celebrating it. First and foremost, happy the best with that. But just very sad news. And then Rob Reiner. I mean, you're talking about an American movie icon, legend, comedic actor, right? Meathead, All in the Family, a great director. I was reading that story. I woke up and I was like, oh my God, like, wow, just unbelievable. Him and his wife murdered. Um, I guess they're seeking um, their son. I guess there was a heated argument. Oh, this guy directed The Princess Bride, classic. When Harry Met Sally, classic. A Few Good Men, classic. Was Meathead on All in the Family, a groundbreaking television show in the 70s, classic. And then, recently, Spinal Tap, which was hilarious. And then he was Leo DiCaprio's father in The Wolf of Wall Street, which he was a phenomenal actor, just comedic, unbelievable chops. And Princess Bride is a classic, absolute classic. That's really a shame. Really a shame. All right, let me break down a couple more of these comments before we close it out. D chimes in again. Q, I'm going to agree with you. I think the Rams are the most balanced team. You got to catch them outside and on the road, and I don't see that happening. Nor do I. Nor do I. If you look at the updated right now as it stands, these were posted 3 hours ago, 2 hours ago. So you get rid of Kansas City. I don't think any team coming out of the North is really going to be a threat. So now we're talking the South and the West, and obviously the East. As it stands at this moment, the Rams have the best odds, the shortest odds. So you got a league of good. I think the Rams are very good to great at times, but to me, they've shown they're the class above. They're plus 350. Seattle, kind of like Denver, finding out ways to get it done. That's all that it's really about in the NFL. Seattle is plus 700. And how about this? Where is Miguel? Where is Michael? How about this? As I predicted in August that the Denver Broncos would win the Super Bowl, they are right now plus 800. Broncos, Pats, Chiefs have been the AFC champions in 11 of the past 12 seasons. Kansas City is out. New England showed a little bit of cracks in the armor. Denver's offense was a question mark, but boom, what they do yesterday. We're not questioning the defense. Defense wins championships. Here you go. Buffalo is plus 850. And again, Kansas City out of the picture. It could be Buffalo's time. And if you have Allen playing like that perennial MVP, here we go. The window, it's closing. Crack it open one last time. Philly sits at plus 1,100. That's crazy because they are the defending champs, but they're not playing like it. And they just destroyed the Raiders. I mean, look, the Raiders, the Giants, the Jets, Cleveland, they're not NFL teams at this stage of the season. If the Eagles start to pick up a little bit and the offense gets in gear and they start running Saquon and Hurts and Brown and Smith and all on the same page, then I think, okay, you got a little momentum. They can be a threat. But they haven't done that through the first 15 weeks, and that scares me. Green Bay takes the major hit with Parsons plus 1,200. The Texans moving up a little bit, plus 1,300, and their defense is going to be a problem for teams they play. So they've got that kind of, poor man's Denver defense. And I say with respect, the Texans are a very good defense, but they can win with defense, kind of like Denver's been winning with defense. Denver showed you a little burst with the offense. I think the Texans need to score more and run the football as well. Patriots at 1,300. You can't, anytime you win 10 in a row, that's not a fluke. Jacksonville, 1,800. And even though I mentioned you, they were going to be a 10-11 win team, San Francisco, plus 2,000. And how about this? The Ravens are plus 2,500. Chicago's at plus 300. The Lions are plus 3,000. And then you get the right? Tampa, Pittsburgh, Carolina. We don't care about that. Point is, a lot of parity, a lot of moving parts this season in the NFL, and it's wide open. It is. Just watch Spinal Tap on Saturday. It was great. Yes, I was doing a broadcast remotely Saturday, and I flipped it on. The Spinal Tap 2 is out too. Oh, Spinal Tap 2. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. Oh, my God. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. Let's go, Q. Making that. You got to. You have to. Are you kidding me? Number one seed is enormous for both conferences. Yes. Because, again, if you break it down, I win a divisional matchup and I host the AFC and/or NFC championship. And I look, my Washington prediction was bad. Daniels got hurt. They got old. You guys were wrong. You guys were right. I was 100% wrong on that. Denver, though, Denver's keeping me a little alive. So my Washington last year and Denver this year, not bad. I don't get a lot right, but Denver right now, they are trending in that direction. I just want to see them run the football a little bit. Can they sustain this? Can Knicks give you these kind of efforts over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks? And more importantly, it's okay if you stub your toe, if you get home field advantage prior to. Can you do this in the playoffs? That's the question. Can you do this in the playoffs if you are Drake May, if you are Bo Nix? Because that game last year, I think even the most honest Broncos fans will tell you, Denver, if memory serves me correct, Denver scored first in that game. I'm pretty sure Denver took the lead in that game. It was like a long touch. I think it was to my guy, Clifford Franklin. They went up 7-0. And then the Bills came back, kicked a field goal, forced a 3 and out, scored on the very next possession, and they ripped off 31 straight points. I mean, they were down 7-0. Denver did that. Denver scores first on the road. And then Buffalo scores 31 unanswered points. Like, Bo Nix did not play particularly well. Now, rookie, first taste in the playoffs, totally understand. He was under duress. They could not run the ball last year. I remember that. Their run defense was suspect last year. They gave up 210 yards on the ground to Buffalo. 210 yards on the ground. Now, I don't think they've given up. I'd have to look, these 100-yard running backs. I just don't know. The other thing, where the hell is my man? Where's my guy Ingram? I thought Ingram was going to be such a playmaker for him. He's not even getting any touches or looks, but Denver's defense can win it all. Buffalo can go on a run. How'd the number one seed work out in the NFC last year? Asking for a friend. Well, Washington went on the road, did they not? And they beat Detroit Lions. It's a different NFC, though. It's a different year, too. The Rams are not the Lions. The Rams this year are better than the Lions last year. The Lions were just not. I trust Stafford more than I trust Jared Goff. And also, if we're going to be fair, the Lions' defense was horrible. They were horrible last year. And you got a red-hot team in Washington. Washington was a hot team going into the playoffs. That's all you're looking for. You get hot at the right time. Now, New England got their loss out of the way. But if you go back, Washington beat Tennessee, New Orleans, Philly, Atlanta, Dallas. Daniels threw for almost 300 yards, made plays late with his legs on the road against Tampa. They put up 41 points, 45 points. He threw for over 300 at Detroit. And then, you come back down to reality against Philadelphia. That was clicking on all cylinders. So this is a different year. It's a very different year. And I think when it's all said and done, the Rams are going to be there. It could be Denver and it could be Buffalo. Who knows? All right, got to start wrapping it up on a Monday. Good stuff with the comments as always. You guys are the best. As I mentioned, don't forget, subscribe, like, comment, engage on the YouTube channel. We'll post some stuff on the shorts as well. TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. Monday Night Football, I told you. I'll go with the fishy fish on the road against Pittsburgh. I can't stand the Steelers. I can't stand Aaron Rodgers. I'll take the 3 with 2 of fish tonight and lay the points. Why not? And I'll play the over on that one, 42.5. All right, back in the saddle manana on a Tuesday. A couple minutes past 6 o'clock hour. I want to remind you, we're also part of the Odyssey family. Don't forget to download the Odyssey app and check out Coastal Sports Digital Network. Please tune in tonight, 8 to 9, Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. Give him a follow on X at Lloyd Vance. As always, we want to thank our sponsors, Fresh Roasted Coffee, Played Against Sports, Three Brooks Bourbon, Get Ready with Tea, and of course, our good friends over at the Jersey Shore Breaks, part of the USBL. Excellent stuff on the comments on a Monday. Appreciate you guys keeping us locked in for well over 2 hours. You guys are the best. Stay warm. Have a little hot toddy. Enjoy Monday Night Football. Back in the saddle manana from 4 to 6 on a Tuesday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Be safe. Be sound. Hasta luego, buen día.